In the high mountains of the Andes Cordillera, the Muisca prince, his naked body covered with gold dust, is about to be enthroned. Accompanied by members of his court, he gets into a raft, which floats out towards the center of Lake Guatavita. At the first light of dawn, the sovereign plunges into the water, offering up to God the gold covering his body. At the same time, his subjects, their eyes respectfully averted from the prince, throw emeralds into the deep, dark lake. Thus begins the legend of El Dorado. Place Vendôme in Paris is the center of the French jewelry business. In the 20th century, a great number of jewels were created with emeralds from Colombia. They were intended for Asian and Middle Eastern sovereigns. And this gemstone still remains popular in modern jewelry making.
Now, about the 2 Colombian emeralds you brought us. You wanted a necklace, so I suggest that I draw the outline of the necklace for you, like this. You could place your emeralds in it here. Perhaps to give it extra sparkle, we could also add some diamonds. I'll finish drawing the outline and then show it to you later, all right?
The emerald is a precious stone, the intense green of which is peerless. Apart from the commercial value, it also symbolizes strength. Legend has it that the Holy Grail was carved out of an emerald fallen from Satan's helmet. The finest ones come from Colombia. In the 16th century, the Spanish landed in this country peopled by Indians. In 1533, they founded the city of Cartagena of Indies. As a means of protection, the town was fortified with great stone walls. It became the most privileged trade site of the vast Spanish colonial empire, and an attractive target for pirates and corsairs. Gold and emeralds from the Caribbean islands were stored here before being shipped to Spain. Today, Colombia has a population of around 36 million, 2/3 of which live in the cities. The people of Colombia are largely of mixed Spanish and native Indian descent. The Andes Cordillera stretches across the country and is divided into 3 great mountain ranges comprising zones of intense volcanic activity. Some of these zones are rich in emerald deposits. These deposits are all located in an area known as the Green Crescent in the department of Boyacá, to the north of Bogota. Low-quality emeralds are sent to the coastal towns to be sold to tourists, but the real commerce takes place in the capital city. Jimenez Avenue is a main thoroughfare in Bogota's city center, the Emerald Quarter.
These people all have stones that often belong to a third party. They act as intermediaries between the buyers and the sellers. The customers who come to Bogota to buy emeralds go to the brokerage offices and ask for a certain type of merchandise, and these people go to the sellers to try and find merchandise that corresponds to the buyer's needs. These commission agents aren't rich. They earn small commissions paid from the difference between what the foreign customer wants to pay, which is always the lowest price, and what the local seller wants for his merchandise, which is always the highest price. So they're waiting to make a catch, as you might say.
Jean-Claude Michelou has been buying emeralds in Colombia since 1976. Each day, on the street, he rubs shoulders with the many commission agents who act as intermediary between the buyers and sellers. Around 15 brokerage offices deal with the international demand.
Here's Tulio. We've been doing business together for several years. He's trustworthy. He's standing on the sidelines at the moment. What are you doing?
I'm waiting to cash a check.
How long were you in the mine?
3 days.
It's stuck on, see? It's not worth much, and they're asking $200 for it.
The agents don't buy stones. They sell them on behalf of the owners. Here, the street trade is carried out by professionals. The tourists who chance by here will systematically be offered fake stones. Here, it's a doublet, a fine slice of emerald stuck into glass, then cut. This stone is worth $5 at most, and is being offered here for $500 to $1,000. In South America, the emerald is closely associated with objects of religious art. An important piece of colonial religious art has been preserved since the 18th century. The Bank of the Republic bought it in 1987 for 413 million pesos, that is $3.5 million, in order to exhibit it at the Bogota Gold Museum. Today, this monstrance is being restored, but its splendor remains intact. It's called La Lechuza, meaning the lettuce, because of the intense green of its 1,485 emeralds. It was commissioned by the Company of Jesus in Bogota between 1700 and 1707 from Joseph Galaz. The artist didn't content himself with just emeralds. He also added a sapphire, 13 rubies, 28 diamonds, 62 Baroque pearls, and 168 amethysts originating from the four corners of the world. All set in just under 5 kilos of pure gold. It was intended to contain and exhibit the sacred host. Goldwork is an ancient Indian tradition dating back to the 8th century BC. All the chroniclers of the Spanish conquest mention it. Emeralds and gold were thought to possess magical properties and were thus used as a sacrificial offering to the gods. The influence of the Catholic religion, imported by the Spanish colonists, has remained very present in the country. During the Easter Holy Week, economic activity slows down. The emerald traders close their offices. Truces are signed with the guerrillas in order to allow a way for the numerous processions that take place throughout the country, and particularly the Popayán, Colombia's religious center. In the heart of the Andes Mountains, in August 1564, a Spanish colonist by the name of Juan de Penagos fled on horseback from the Muzo Indians, a fierce cannibalistic tribe, who made a trade out of emeralds. Noticing that his steed was limping, and at the risk of his life, he stopped to examine the horse's hooves. Stuck in the center of one of them, he discovered a vivid green gemstone. The Muzo mines had just been rediscovered.
You're about to see something that few people have seen. Camillos is the mining operations manager, and Loriano is the mine owner's representative.
Today, the mining company Coex Minas, of which Victor Carranza is one of the leading shareholders, mines the emeralds using modern technology. Each day, like a descent into hell, the miners go down a 286-meter deep hole called a clavada. At the bottom, perpendicular tunnels, sometimes hundreds of meters long, stretch through the mountains in search of emerald pockets. The temperature at the pit bottom reaches 45 degrees centigrade. This is due to the geothermal gradient that causes the progressive increase in temperature the further one descends into the earth. Despite the ventilation, breathing is difficult. Dust from the drilling covers the miners' faces and bodies. The men remain at the bottom for 8 hours and are relieved by 2 other teams. The mines never rest.
We need to find the rock wall. It could take a long time depending on the zone.
Finding the wall's an art in itself. It's hard, sweaty work.
The first indication of the presence of emeralds are the white calcite and dolomite veins. They are easy to distinguish in the black shale that forms the mountain. The miner will carefully break up each piece, searching for the slightest green trace of emerald. "38 million years ago, hot saline fluids infiltrated the black shale, dissolving beryllium, one of the composition elements of the emerald, as well as chromium and vanadium, which give it its green color. The pressure of these fluids caused cavities and crevices to appear. White calcite and dolomite present in these fluids deposited there and crystallized with the beryllium, chromium, and vanadium, forming emeralds. This is an example of hydrothermal formation. The crystals formed perfectly. Colombian emeralds contain hardly any solid inclusions. They are pure and clean.
When we find a wall, we have to wait for the boss before starting on it.
That could be the start of a good wall. We never know where they begin. This one here, for example.
We've now reached the compact zone. This is where we can see the quality of the emeralds. At the moment, we're extracting big ones.
Son grandes fuerzas las que están saliendo hasta el momento.
The waste and debris obtained from the blasting and drilling are conveyed along the tunnels in carts. Danger is present at all times. Working conditions are extremely hard, and the miners' religious faith is a permanent help to them. The carts are hauled up to the surface. The sterile black shale is dumped at the bottom of the mine site. The guaqueros will now try their luck in this waste, but their presence on the mine site is strictly forbidden. They have to keep a good distance away. Heavily armed guards stand watch. The gem-bearing ore is placed on a conveyor belt where, under close surveillance, the men will sort and pick out the emeralds. These are immediately handed over to the mine owner's representative. Here, anyone caught stealing a stone will be severely dealt with. At the end of the conveyor belt, a waste chute conveys the discarded ore to the bottom of the mine site. Only a few dozen guaqueros are allowed to retrieve this waste. The precious booty is gathered up in cloth bags and quickly taken to the river to be washed. Who knows, they might just get lucky today. At Muzo, the open pit method is also used for the large emerald-bearing veins, which are dynamite blasted. Bulldozers push the scrape shale towards the river. This operation is called el tambre. In the past, this site used to draw around 20 to 30,000 guaqueros. These treasure diggers sometimes find an emerald that has slipped through the mine's tight net. It will enable them to pay their debts and buy food while waiting for an even bigger find. The tambre is rarer now, so are the emeralds, and the mine owners are trying to eliminate the presence of guaqueros, who are far less numerous today. Day after day, these poor men meticulously sift through the mounds and mounds of rejected shale, over and over again. The mine waste has been dumped into the Rio Minero for so many years that the water is now barely visible through the thick, dark mud. All the members of the family participate in the search for emeralds, from the children to the grandparents. Some of the guaqueros are former merchants or accountants, while others are outlaws, hiding out here at the end of the world, where no one will come looking for them because of the dangerous, impassable roads. They all have the same feverish look in their eyes.
You can find a lot of rock waste here. I don't know what percentage of the production it represents exactly, but it's waste from the mine up there. After blasting the emerald veins, they dump the rock waste down here, and all these people search the riverbed, and they do in fact find emeralds, big ones even, that have fallen into the river. Do you have any small stones?
Yes, some orlitas.
Let me see them.
I have a big morala, but I don't have it with me.
We can see it later. He's found these, stone by stone. They're very small stones, of course, but they sometimes find big ones too. If you stay out here long enough, they'll usually have some stones to sell you, so that's the advantage.
I've been working here for 25 years. I came here in August 1969, and I've been here ever since. I have a lot of tales to tell. My life's like a film. If I told you everything from beginning to end, it would make a fine story. The stones come from over there, but we aren't allowed to go there. The mine owners are there. We retrieve what they throw away. We always manage to find some emeralds. I don't earn my living doing just this. When I don't find many emeralds, I buy moralites at a low price and resell them. I get by like that. If I don't find any stones, I buy some low-priced ones because I don't have much money at the moment. A few years ago, I used to buy emeralds and sell them. This lasted until I was robbed. Now I'm ruined. But I'm hopeful for the future, and I've already started over again. Here's the zone where we break the emerald ore. The emeralds come from over there. Look at the coloring of this stone. There might be emeralds inside it. There are all kinds of them. Big ones, white ones, black ones. Business is bad at the moment. No one is buying. We buy the merchandise, and it takes 8 to 15 days before we earn anything. And even then, it's not very much, but at least it helps.
Tolima has a wife and children who live a long way from here. His life is simple. He works 12 hours a day from sunrise to sunset. In the evening, in his room, carved directly out of the hillside, there's nothing for him to do. He's exhausted anyway. It's this green fever that keeps me going, he explains. And then there's the Madonna, who protects me, and may perhaps help me find a big emerald. The last one. The one that will enable me to leave Muzo forever.
Let's see what we have here. When we want to sell, we come here. This is where we meet up. Here we can sell them for 3 times as much. I've invested 150,000 pesos, so I'm trying not to lose this money, but no one's buying at the moment. No one's making any offers. I'm pressed for time because I need money for tomorrow. I have to sell so that I can hand over this money tomorrow.
Each morning, at the foot of the Muzo mining site, an emerald market takes place. The guaqueros sell the emeralds that they have found in the river to the esmeralderos. The stones are sometimes exchanged or paid for with money or food. On the other side of the mountain is the Coscuez mining site, 15 kilometers away as the crow flies. It takes several hours to reach it by road, bypassing the rocky massif. A violent struggle between the two mining regions for control of Coscuez resulted in 5,000 deaths. It ended in 1990 after the intervention of the Bishop Alvaro Aro, Bishop of Chinquinquira.
My name's Hector Gutierrez Voillot. I'm the bishop of this section of the department of Boyacá. Since the time of the Indians in 1492, and even earlier, the blessed soil of Boyacá has been both privileged and cursed with possessing enormous emerald deposits granted to it by the Lord. These stones that are used by many for personal adornment, and which could be a source of income for numerous peoples, have become synonymous for us with episodes of death, tragedy, destruction, and war. In this context of violence, there came a moment during the time of Bishop Jaro, who was the second bishop of the diocese, when he invited all the men and women who worked in the emerald trade in one form or another to think about what we were doing, whether it was a good thing, and if it was really what we wanted to leave to our children. Fortunately, they all felt in their hearts a deep love for God. They were Catholic Christians and they loved the Virgin Mary. They therefore heard the voice of the Church and started to do simple things which started us out on the road to peace. At the present time, my friends, I can't say that we are completely at peace. No, but we are making progress. The peace process has begun and we are all working together towards this aim. Without the Church, it wouldn't have been possible. Without the bishops and priests, we never could have done it. Equally, we could never have done it without the miners who helped us immensely. It is they who did it, as they were the ones who suffered the most. With all these deaths and tragedies, the lives of entire families were destroyed. But we are united in the same political cause and desire for peace, and we're going to defend it together. We've embarked on this adventure and we'll see it through to the end.
The Coscuez emerald market is larger and busier than the one at Muzo. Coscuez emeralds are green with a yellowish hue, while those of Muzo are slightly bluish. The deposits are mined by the company Ismeta Coal, one of the major partners of which is the Emerald Baron, Don Victor Carranza.
Mucha suerte a todos los que han comprado la boleta a 500 pesitos y ganan 200 pesos. Mucha suerte, van a ganar 200 millones de pesos.
Pero más calidad que sí. No. ¿Quién es esta piedra? Mía. ¿Me paga bien? ¿Es suya? Sí.
You have to have a regular supply flow, so you always buy from the same men who won't try and cheat you because they know you'll never do business with them again. There's no point in coming here constantly when production isn't constant. That's for people who trade in rough stones. They're here all the time. So you have circuits, but it's better to buy in Bogota because there you can examine the stones properly to see if they have faults or not. Here you can't do that. You just have to know who you're buying from, so that if there's a problem, you can always return the stone and get your money back.
Enormous sums of money circulate through these markets. In order to buy a stone or a batch of stones, the dealers form partnerships with each other in order to reduce risks. The emerald is a fragile stone, and it is difficult even for a specialist to know for sure what the result will be after cutting. The emerald's fragility is due to the presence of inclusions in its crystals. These inclusions are tiny pockets of fluid containing a gas bubble and a crystal of salt, very frequent in this gemstone, and which are commonly known as the emerald's garden. Everyone involved in the emerald trade, from the miners to the mine owners, is extremely superstitious and religious. Colombia is made up of a strange combination of Indian and Catholic traditions. Marlene is a commission agent. She sells emeralds. Her work is stressful and dangerous. She never knows what tomorrow will be made of, and it's for this reason that she regularly goes to see a taita, a Guambiano Indian shaman, who predicts the future and heals the body as well as the spirit, with mountain plants from the Popayan region.
I can help you by giving you some plants. Some plants and plant brews. They will purify you during the night.
Está bien.
The inhabitants of Muzo like to tell the story of the emerald's origin. Fiona was a beautiful princess, and Tena was her husband. They lived in harmony until Zarbi, the incarnation of evil, seduced the princess. Her prince died of a broken heart. The princess, overcome with remorse, cried day and night. The gods were moved, and in memory of the couple made two mountains spring out of the bowels of the earth. As for Zarbi, he was transformed into a river, the famous Rio Minero, that was to separate Fiona and Tena forever. The tears of the inconsolable princess were transformed into emeralds. As if to confirm the legend, it is along the Rio Minero that the most beautiful emerald deposits in the world are to be found. 7 years ago, during a prospecting operation, an emerald crystal was found in a place called La Pita. For the past 2 years, after enormous drilling and construction investments, the mine has been producing 70% of Colombia's emeralds.
Here we have a stone extracted from one of the Pita mines. It's about 20 carats and costs around 5 million. This mine began operating 5 to 7 years ago and started producing 2 years ago. Production isn't continuous, it's sporadic, but the yields are very good.
It no doubt represents the future, as the Muzo mines that have been producing for centuries are showing signs of exhaustion, which also explains the progressive disappearance of the guaqueros in this region.
This mine is very recent. The Coscuez deposits have been mined since the time of the Indians. This mine is the result of modern prospecting techniques. It's been in operation for 1.5 years, 2 years. It's very recent, it has a good future and a lot of surface. Each yield starts with a cisqueo, as it's called here. At the beginning, these are moralitas, small stones of weak color and quality. Later, as the prospecting work progresses, the yield becomes better, and we can find pockets or very rich zones containing well-formed stones, big ones and of good quality. Good matter. The biggest stone we found was about 500 carats. It was about as big as my hand or twice the size of a battery. It was like half of this bottle, but hexagonal, the way emeralds crystallize.
La forma perfecta como cristaliza el berilo hexagonal. Que este es el resultado de este mineral que se obtiene del trabajo, del laboreo de muchos hombres, como ven aquí.
It's a mineral that's obtained due to the hard labor of many men, as you can see here. They do hard work such as digging vertical shafts and horizontal tunnels. It's often the result of long years of strenuous physical effort.
De muchas personas.
The longest tunnel of the Pita mine measures approximately 1.25 kilometers. This mining site is a good example of reconciliation between clans of large mine owners. The mine's investors found emeralds after 5 years of prospecting. The discovery was made in the property zone of another concession whose own activity had been slowed down due to lack of funds. Under the authority of the all-powerful Don Victor Carranza, an obligatory partner, a consortium was set up between the two companies. Today, the production is shared equally over an 80-meter zone on either side of the property boundaries. In this way, a new conflict has been avoided. Here, too, the owners allow the guaqueros to search through the discarded shale. At this mine, we're a far cry from the colonial era, when the conquistadors forced the Indians, chained together like animals, to rake the earth and dig narrow, badly supported tunnels that caved in repeatedly, the loss in lives reaching staggering proportions. Most of the rough emeralds end up in Bogota. The Colombians, despite years of internal warfare, maintain their traditions and joie de vivre. Salsa music helps them forget their daily difficulties. Founded in 1538, Bogota is one of the world's highest capital cities, located at an altitude of 2,800 meters in the Andes Mountains. The city acts as a kind of open emerald market. Hardly any of the brokerage offices keep stocks of emeralds. Like busy ants, vast numbers of commission agents transport batches of rough or cut emeralds from office to office on behalf of the owners.
Do you have any merchandise?
No, el que 8 de pronto sí. ¿No tienes más? ¿Todo lo demás? No. Vea, hay una oficina mía, hay un cliente mira.
One can sometimes come across exceptional stones, like this trapiche emerald, from the Spanish word meaning wheel. It is formed of 6 hexagonal crystals extending out from a core crystal.
No, de cristales sin color no. Eso sí sirve, ¿cómo lo tienes? Cuesta 4, la oferta. Hay una oficina especial. ¿Vamos? Sí, sí.
These are stones that have either been stolen from the mine or found in the river at the bottom of the mine site and then cut. The owners have a stone, 2 stones, 5 stones a kilo, which they cut and then hire a commission agent to sell them. At this hour, all the good stones are circulating through the brokerage offices.
Untiringly, these agents do their round of the offices each day, promoting the quality of their stones. The stones are cleaned with a cloth before being presented to a buyer, as the slightest detail counts when it's a question of selling at the best price. Indeed, the higher the price he gets for the stone, the higher the agent's commission will be. The choice of stone has to be made with meticulous care. Jean-Claude Michelou knows that the slightest error in judgment in evaluating a stone can cost him a great deal of money.
And those?
They're a set.
That'll be 2 sets then.
Yes, I'll let you have it for 120.
No, no.
Bueno, estamos cerquita. Por ahora 120. No, no, no.
The price they're going to ask will, in my opinion, be around the equivalent of $15,000 to $20,000 the carat. It's a stone that we can probably buy here for between $8,000 to $10,000. For merchandise like that, they usually ask the double. For lower quality merchandise, they can ask 4 or 5 times its true value because they're fishing.
Hoy estamos a 3 o 4. 4.
Ya, tienes 6 yutón, ¿no?
Sí, ya. Así no para cobrarlo por...
Para cobrarlo.
Ahí
Bueno. Gracias, Jean-Claude. Bueno, feliz tarde.
The biggest and finest stone I know of is a stone that was sold 4 or 5 years ago in Switzerland. An English dealer bought it. It weighed 19.5 carats and was sold at $115,000 the carat. So the price was over $2 million.
Here, when you're well known, deals are based on trust, but very often one pays cash. The emerald world is very exclusive, and its members have to walk the straight line. Emerald cutting is a specialist job. As it's a fragile stone, a special cut has been devised called the emerald cut, which uses the maximum crystal matter while reducing sharp corners that would make the stone vulnerable to a direct shock. The emerald is a hard stone, 8 on the Mohs hardness scale, where diamonds are at 10. A recent technique developed by French researchers enables the identification of an emerald's geographical origins. An emerald retrieved from the wreck of the Spanish galleon Nuestra Señora de Atocha, which sank near Florida in 1622, was identified as originating from the Muzo mines.
Emerald cutting is divided into 7 stages. The preliminary stage involves cutting the rough into pieces. It's the basis of gem cutting. Once the stone has been cut, its cutting lines are identified. The stone is then polished and stuck onto a peg. We are now at the shaping stage. The shape of the stone will depend on the intended setting and the space available. We can give it many shapes: square, oval, teardrop-shaped, heart-shaped. A great variety of shapes are possible with the emerald. We're now at the faceting stage. We turn the stone over and facet the pavilion. We then repeat the process. After the pavilion has been faceted, we polish the stone. Once the crown and pavilion are shiny, we move on to the cleaning stage. Here we clean the stones with acid solutions in order to give them more luster.
Once a stone has been cut, it has to be cleaned of the abrasive products that were used to polish it. So it's dipped in acid solutions, and traces of these also have to be removed, of course. So it's cleaned yet again with another product. Once the stone is thoroughly clean, its inclusions and internal fractures are more clearly visible. So this is when filler substances are injected. These have to be transparent, of course, because on no account can colored substances be used, as these would modify the stone's very essence.
An emerald's purity can be affected by crystalline inclusions or fractures, very common in Colombian emeralds. When light penetrates, it reflects on the fracture like a mirror. Filling these fractures with a substance having an index of refraction similar to that of the emerald renders them more or less invisible. Different fillers can be used for this, the most traditional one being natural oils. Synthetic oils are now also used, as well as synthetic and epoxy resins, which are hard to remove from the stone and don't wear very well. Over time, some of these substances lose their transparency, which affects the luster and color of the emerald, making the stone cloudy or milky. They can even render the emerald more vulnerable to heat or direct shock. Most of these substances are injected into the emerald under pressure. They are often heated in order to reduce their viscosity and thus facilitate their penetration into the fractures. Today, advanced examination techniques enable, for the most part, to determine whether an emerald has been filled, and in particular, with what substance. Exceptional stones are extremely rare and reach astronomical prices. They contain no filler substance. It isn't easy to view exceptional stones in Colombia. Only the large mine owners possess them and sell them with parsimony to an elite international clientele.
Here, we're in fact at the home of this man here, Victor Carranza, who can't receive us today as he's presently under arrest. He controls all the Colombian mines, and so it's here where one can see the finest stones. I've arranged to have some shown to us, and they should be arriving at any moment.
¿Cómo le va? ¿Cómo está Gilberto? Gilberto Rincón. ¿Cómo está Luis Eduardo? Bueno, entonces, a ver qué bellezas nos trajeron.
We've come to see your treasures.
Nos dio unos brutos hace unos meses, pero van a necesitar un poquito más de cristales para hacer la...
A few months ago you supplied me with some rough stones, and now I'm going to need some more crystals.
Pero se necesita algunos ejemplares más para hacer la datación y la geoquímica.
Jewel setters often have very dry throats when setting an emerald. In fact, the fragility of this stone makes it unique. The setting process will be carried out using special instruments and with delicate, subtle movements in order to avoid cracking or scratching this marvelous green gemstone.
No, it's fine. Or maybe if I wear it a little higher, like... No, it's perfect.
For centuries, the legend of Lake Guatavita has haunted and lured conquistadors and adventurers of all ranks. Many have attempted to lay their hands on the sunken treasure. Some tried excavating the mountain rock in order to drain the lake, but in vain. Others dived into the lake, but never reached its deep bottom. Today, no one has managed to retrieve the fabulous emeralds of El Dorado.